Just kind of documenting some stuff here. I love the winter time because it's a time to reflect and get clear, to make sure you're not just running hard into burnout, but you lose track of where you're going. That's an easy thing to do. And I go and I get these sketch pads from like Five Below, kind of like the dollar store, and I just go nuts. I'm always, on the weekends, like Sundays, I sit down and I get a calculator out and I'm writing process mapping, frameworks, structures, workflow design, anything to get a better grasp of how the journey and how success looks. So, and then I am recording on my phone. I have a $4,000 camera right here. I've got 35 grand in camera gear, and yet I'm recording on my phone because it's just fast and easy, and I can upload it to you much quicker. Weird. All right, so here's what I want to talk about. First of all, getting clarity and getting specific is you have to first define the things you want to cut out of your life. So that, number one is when you do a purge or you clean your house, you want to throw out everything that doesn't belong, or create like a throw out pile. And then also this for your life. Number one is most of social media. It's become a complete cesspool. Not that people are bad, but anybody can upload any random thought or idea to the internet, and it's just streams of it, no matter what app or platform you go on. And so you have to get really good at sifting. We have to get really good at sifting and figuring out what is high quality information and what is not. And I heard somebody say a comment on one of my videos recently. What did they say? Something about I sell an online course. I have my landscaping YouTube channel. We just crossed like 115,000 subscribers, and I sell a course for like 37 bucks. I sell a bunch of courses actually. And the guy's like, why would I take this course when I can just look around on YouTube and find the information for free? I thought about that, and I have a perfect answer for all of us. Because on the internet, you can find a lot of the information, or most of it, for free. But you have to do tons of work of scouring through the internet and researching and then getting distracted. The new information that you get that's high quality information is basically information that you pay for. Because now somebody who has done the thing, or is an expert, or someone who has teamed up with people who know how to do the thing, and then they have condensed the information down in a step-by-step process inside of an online course in the form of something that you pay for, that you get just that condensed without all the other fluff and all the advertising. That's the power of online courses, coaching, consulting, all that. Well, the next thing is, what about yourself? How do you put yourself and get yourself on the hook and get yourself to actually do the thing? Right here I'm documenting out, this is my body of work. It'll be my magnum opus. It's called Know Your Worth. I've done a couple of live talks. I've actually spoken all over the country now, and the most resonating thing I've done so far, according to what other people say, is something called Know Your Worth. And so I'm mapping this out. It's about, there's a lot of stuff here, I'm not going to get into it. And that brings me right back to, you can go take all the action in the world, but unless you cut out the things that don't belong anymore, learning how to say no, developing healthy boundaries. Excuse me. I just ate a huge salad. And I'll go floss again. Like even as I sit here right now, there's a low level anxiety that sits where my skin is like dancing. It's like on fire, and this anxiety will not go away. And it's not like something that I can't control. It's that the fear of unplugging completely from everyone and everything and all social media. Because when you've opened up all these streams of communication, you have multiple streams of income, you got clients, you got family, you got social media, you got all this stuff you have to pay attention to, and it's all on its own timers. You have to pull the plug on certain things and only keep the bare essentials. Well, when you've built a life that requires you to be there all the time, whether if you're a small business owner, you have a family, it requires a lot of you and a lot of your time. That stops you from doing what we call deep work. So for this winter, just like I've done in a lot of winters, is about totally unplugging. And I've unplugged too far in the past, where I do like a whole body detox and eat all fruits and vegetables, or don't eat, pray, fast, meditate, no social media, a lot of laying around, reading books, meditating, to the point where it was very hard to get back on the grind and get back in the springtime. And this is about intentionally unplugging. I don't even know how to do it yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out myself. The fear of letting go and the fear of unplugging, so you can objectify your entire life and get it in front of you like a crystal ball or something, and then you can have no attachments. Even as I say that, it makes me feel anxious. So you can say, this is the life that I want to design. And the reason why is because there's certain secondary emotional payoffs you are getting by living the life that you live. There's certain things you are currently doing for money that you actually don't even want to do, and you're terrified to face that because that's what pays your bills and keeps a roof over your head. We've been trained and conditioned by culture and society, and just to make the world go round, that, you know, at least 50% of all the stuff you're doing, you don't actually want to do inside of your soul, but you have to do it to make money to pay the bills. So that's another obsession that I have, is paying attention to this thing of, if you're already doing something you don't want to do to pay the bills, but you want to live a better lifestyle and have a better life, we're trained and conditioned to go do more of the thing that we don't want to do and get better at it and expand it and grow it so we can have a better life. But then you're just trading your peace and harmony. You're trading your lives, your missions, goals, mandates. You are trading your higher self. You're like suffocating it under a pillow, like your spiritual you, just so you can become successful. And then you have a bunch of stupid bullshit, like you get your $1 million house, you get your fancy cars, you get your vacation home, you get a bunch of money in the bank, and yet you're miserable because you're doing a bunch of stuff you don't want to do in order to get a bunch of stuff that you don't need. That's failure. That sounds like a horrible life to live, and nobody cares. When you wake up and realize you have your $1 million house and nobody cares, or people who see you as Mr. Moneybags and they just want money from you, or every time there's an emergency, people are coming to you, now you really they call it selling. You've sold your soul, right? So I'm really, really looking at, how do you design a life that you love, a life of service, a life of passion, a life where you don't sell out your values and what you love just to get money. And I think that alignment is very important. Finding what are all your core values and get really aligned with all that stuff. Now, unfortunately, if you don't even make enough money to make all your ends meet, you have to go do shit. You don't have to, but you're probably going to go do shit you don't want to do. It's like, for me, climbing trees and trimming trees and being on my hands and knees and shoveling rocks, right? Until you can get to the point where you raise your average ticket margin. I do landscaping, and then you can hire employees, right? But then it puts you in a different position where you're always on the hook and responsible for the employees, and now you're stuck in the truck all day. You're stuck, selling all these jobs and doing all this invoicing and billing and accounting and hustling all the time. And then you get a receptionist, and then you get a bookkeeper, and then you expand, then you hire foremen to run it. And it gets to this point where now you're in charge of this whole ecosystem you've built. You're not shoveling the rocks anymore, or as much. You're not cutting the grass per se, but now you're in a worse position because now you're handcuffed to all these people doing this thing, unless you love that. If you really love that, that's what you want to do, that's fine. But there are people that grow, just for instance, multi-million-dollar landscaping businesses so they can quote-unquote have freedom. And that does work. If you follow like a Grant Cardone, the secret success is to Learn how to love what you hate. Learn how to love what you hate. It really does work. And I'm talking about genuinely love it. Because at higher levels in the business, you can actually fall back in love with your business again. And I've done it. Like, I love my landscaping business. If God forbid, if it were like taken away from me, I would be very unhappy and sad and depressed because I love my landscaping business. And there's many times where I pendulum back and forth to hating this business, feeling like I'm a slave to it and I'm trapped inside of it, and then going back to loving it again. And I realize that it's a conscious choice of the way when you change the way you see things, the things you see change. So determining what part of it is your resistance and your ego versus what is the truth. And so when you see things when you despise them and you hate them and all that, of course you're going to be miserable and hate it. But when you see what you love about something, you have to see through the eyes of love first. So raise your vibration and your calibration to get yourself into a place of love and happiness and gratitude. And then from that place, make your decisions and see how you see things. Because if you see things from a negative, depressed perspective, you're not going to see the good in anything. You're just going to suffer, right? And sometimes suffering is necessary to finally get to the place where you have reached enlightenment, right? It's the way of crucifixion, the way of the cross. It's enlightenment through suffering. And it works. It does. There are people that are very wise today that have very strong, healthy boundaries, that when they say no, no means no. When they say yes, it means yes. Their word is their worth. Their worth is the word. They do what they say what they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, whether they feel like it or not. And they live integrity, and they don't have to waste any emotional energy on petty things because they have clarity, right? And then from that place, they can actually be a good steward and a philanthropist and go out and help people from their heart and have no strings attached and not expect anything in return. They did it because they said they were going to do it because they want to help, not to get anything in return or to secretly want to get anything in return. See, when you live your life as a good steward, that's a good place to be. You're administering a process from a place of detachment and choosing when you are attached and when you are not. You don't get involved in petty bullshit. You don't, like, all this stuff is free. See what I'm talking about? I'm getting and talking about, like, I guess you could say wisdom. That is abundance. That's pure abundance right there. And it doesn't cost you any money. It's more valuable than money. It's so valuable that money, it can't even hold on to money. Money can't even hold it because it vibrates through the laws of intention, right? It can't hold a physical form. Like, and money is just a currency. It's just a go-between. I'm just using it as like an example that there are many, many, many forms of wealth. And the highest form of wealth is peace, love, harmony, tranquility, health, peace, love, harmony, tranquility, health, kindness, understanding, wisdom, good-heartedness, being frank with others, integrity, maturity. I already said understanding. Communication, relationships. I don't know, I could go on for hours talking about it, but then when you start to go down into the world of transaction, material, even just talking about it feels icky. Like this commercialized type of brainwashed culture we live in. We've been indoctrinated into believing lies, right? And it sucks out all the true wealth. Sucks out all the true wealth, so we're reduced down to our utility value of that of just being robots or animatrons that just work and transact to keep the cog in the wheel, like the machine, going, and then the true spirit is captured or infiltrated or sequestered or intercepted and gone somewhere else. That's why you might feel a detachment. So here, let me just finish up with this. You can actually live a very modest, mediocre. There's nothing wrong. Say mediocrity is bad. That's horrible. Well, think about this. If you live a middle-class life and you live in a small home, but it's your home, and you have your own little freelance business, or you have a good job, and you have food in the fridge, and like you can take Sundays off, and you can take a hot shower and brush your teeth, and you have friends and family that loves you, and you can afford to like go out to eat and, I don't know, have a nice laptop computer and watch Netflix. And you know, you see where I'm going with this. Like, okay, so from that place, if you see that mediocre to us is actually total abundance to other people, from a place of gratitude and being happy for what you do have, is the truth of where true abundance lies, or the launching pad for higher levels of prosperity. You first have to be totally happy with what you have, and realize that you've already won, right? So you've already won if you have all the things that I've just mentioned. If you're not sleeping in your car, and if you're not, I mean, I think even if you're hooked on drugs and you realize you've already won, a place of gratitude so strong can flow through you that can literally, you can put the drugs down. You can just drop them because you realize you've already won and you're worthy and you're worth it and you have everything. If you're going through depression, right? The depression can no longer hold on to you if you vibrate to a higher level and you wake up and realize, oh my God, my life is beautiful. I cannot, even though you might be going through some really hard things, right? Right? Your life is beautiful. When you just, I went through some pretty bad depressions, and one depression I was so sick and tired of being depressed. I was depressed for like 4 months, and at rock bottom, I got actually so sick and tired of being depressed that I couldn't take being depressed anymore. And I went and I looked in the mirror in my own eyes. I'm not saying it's going to work for you, but I looked in my own eyes and I said, Keith, I love you. This is a fact. I love you and I care about you. And I choose to live. I choose to be happy, and I choose to no longer be depressed. This is a conscious choice that I'm making right now. But the choice was one that was so strong that the pain of getting out of depression and getting better was actually less painful than staying the same. So it was more painful to just stay in depression. It was actually, because we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure, right? I wasn't trying to gain pleasure by getting out into being depressed. It was that being depressed was so painful that I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't even take it anymore. I'm like, well, screw this, because there's a moment when you realize, when I say nobody cares, you got to discern what that means for you. Nobody cares. When you're depressed, nobody cares. When you go through hard times, if you make $10 million next year, nobody cares. If you finally get your big dream home and all the things you want, a vacation house and a jacuzzi and a freaking Range Rover, nobody cares. If you're going through some dramatic thing, and you're like, what do you mean nobody cares? I mean, people are so concerned about themselves and how they feel and what affects them or what do they get out of it. They don't, how many of them actually really care about you for real? Most of them don't. So when you realize if you're going through depression, nobody cares and no one's going to, you're like, well, wait a second. This is what I thought. I was like, if nobody cares, and even if I suffered worse than this and I went through deeper suffering than I'm going through right now, if I really, really, really suffered, maybe then they'll care. No, nobody cares. And you actually become a burden on people. Your own spouse probably doesn't even care. They just care about how, it's weird, like this human thing that we have is like, basically if nobody cares, then you just like give up. You're like, wait a second, why am I holding this whole thing when it's not doing nobody cares. Even this thing sucked. This is really hard to hold on to, this addiction. this depression, this takes a lot of work. So you're telling me if I just let this thing go and I let it down and I just surrender and just let it go, that it can just be gone? Like I get to benefit? Imagine like you're at like the bottom of like a, well, I don't want to say like the water, but imagine you're holding a beach ball down. Or let's say you're in the water and you're holding onto this heavy anvil, like right in the cartoons, and it's made out of like iron, and you're holding it, you're like, oh, this thing's so heavy, and you're in the water up to your neck, you're like, oh. All you gotta do is just let it go, and you can't even stand up. But nobody can see it because the water, they just see you with your head sticking out, go, ah, ah, and they're like, you're like, I'm holding this thing. But they're like, we can't see it. They're not gonna come down there and underneath the water and look at it. And they're like, you're like, so 1 minute you're like, wait a second. If I let go of this thing, I could stand up and walk out of the water and go walk on the dry land in the sunshine with everybody else. But then you could sit in that mucky water and holding on to this thing, screaming. And ain't nobody coming in there to save you, right? Some people will, though. That's a very rare type of person, right? That'd be like the level of like Jesus, right? For real. Dude went down into the mucky waters and got crucified. And the whole time believed that even if you think he's crazy, that dude actually believed what he was doing was real. That vibrates really high. Not just on my list, but if you study all that stuff, that's the highest vibration. To go and sacrifice yourself because you believe you're saving other people, right? So anyway, you let this thing go. You're like, wait a second. Because I'm holding it, I'm suffering. Sure, I can just let it go? You let it go. And you notice around you for the first time, all this abundance comes rushing in. It was like you were holding up the walls. Go, no, I don't want the abundance to come rushing in. Ah. And you let go, and it just goes. And you're in the present moment, like. Oh my God. This is amazing. From this place, you can do anything. You can be anything because you don't need anything. As soon as you need something, right? Like this grass here. It's beautiful. I can observe it. Wow. It's not even real. But then as soon as you feel like you need it, then it closes everything down. All the abundance is gone and you're just focusing on this thing that you need, and now you're suffering. But if you can let go of it and realize you already have it, because you're viewing it and you're like experiencing it, it's already yours. When you realize it's already yours, then you don't need it. It's this weird subjectivity, objectivity thing that we toil with. It's the dichotomy of being a human being, that we're half spirit, half flesh. So it's at war, and we're stuck in the middle. That's how we evolve. That's the pirate's plank that we walk, the line that we walk that tests our faith long term. Walk the line. Go and be great.